Welcome to the Fashion Translator. I'm Claire, your host. Together we explore how AI and innovation are reshaping the fashion industry through creativity, technology, and global partnership. For today's episode, I'm excited to welcome Romain Liot, co-founder of Adore.me. Romain, thank you for joining me. Could you please introduce yourself and share a bit about your journey?
Hello, Claire. Thank you very much for hosting. It's a pleasure. Adore.me is a journey. I started my career in consulting at McKinsey, and one thing led to the other, and I wanted to do something more entrepreneurial. And with a friend and partner, we launched Adore.me in 2013, which was a luxury brand in the US. Think Victoria's Secret online with a model of direct to customer. And like every startup, we had up and down. It was a long journey. We saw many things in the market, in the fashion market, in the US consumer change, in the crisis, COVID, and ultimately the company was sold to Victoria's Secret in 2023.
Nice. Tell us a bit more about the mission. Why lingerie rather than sports or regular ready-to-wear? What attracted you to this specific category?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a mix of, I would say, left brain argument and right brain argument. The left brain argument was Morgan. He had issues to find some lingerie clothing for his girlfriend at the time. And since the experience as a customer was not that great when you are a man and you wanted to give. But the right brain was actually more prevalent was we wanted to launch something in e-commerce. And in e-commerce, it's not that easy as a business to launch. And what was very important for us was the price point. Because if you sell something above $100, it's very niche, luxury. If you sell something less than $30, you compete with Amazon. That was pretty powerful already. So we tried to find something that was genuine positive experience for customer with a genuine product that was in this range of $40 to $80 price point. And we did a bunch of analysis. And we landed on this intimate category. That's how the story started, but it has evolved. I think like every entrepreneurial journey, it has evolved over time. So it started more as an entrepreneurial goal. Oh, let's launch a business in New York City, 2030, fashion and so on. And it has evolved over time. And we have evolved in our personal life. We also have matured. We got children over time. Something has changed. And I think the mission of Adore.me has evolved. And in particular, from 2019 onwards, we made a gradual shift towards sustainability. And we did many things, and I'm sure I will elaborate on that. But one of the things I'm very proud of was we changed our status to become a PBC, Public Benefit Corporation, which is a new type of structure in the US where you embed the importance of managing your different stakeholders in the mission of the company and not only your shareholder. So that it goes beyond the engagement. It's truly a mission with the goal to change fashion for the greater good. And that's what we are trying to do over time.
That's a beautiful mission. You mentioned you started this with some friends, so it's like a collaborative project. Tell us a bit more about your role within this joint mission and which aspect of the business were more in your focus.
It's a great question. What was interesting in our duo is we were very complementary. Morgan was more focused on the front end, with investor, like finance, the product. And me, I was more the topic of organization, marketing, operations, supply chain. So very complementary. All at the same time, we had a genuine shared language. We both were coming from McKinsey, to be honest. And so it was very easy to click and connect. And I say that because in many entrepreneur stories, you have two co-founders that are extremely different, the tech guy with a business guy or a designer guy with a business person. And I'm sure it works. I've never experienced myself. But in our case, we were different, but extremely compatible and allowing a dialogue that was healthy and we were very smooth. I think it's important because entrepreneurship is pretty hard. You never stop. So
that's very true. You mentioned that Adore.me took a sustainable turn. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
What was interesting about our journey was we were outsider of the fashion industry to start with. So all the things we have developed over time was from the position of an outsider of the industry. So very early, we put a lot of tech in all the things we were doing. I think we connected to the first API of OpenAI in 2020, which was, nobody had heard about it, but our tech is the next big thing. That's an example. We were the first one to implement Google Cloud in the retail sector. So that's the type of, so tech first, data first, pretty strong in terms of process. And of course, we hire some people from the fashion industry, designer and so on, but our DNA was a bit different. And when we transitioned toward more responsible fashions, we did it our way, which was not perfect, but which was very different what we see. And for instance, very early, we felt that our story was the one of our transformations. Because the reality, fashion brands today, the way fashion is done, it's polluting, create a lot of things. And instead of pretending that we're perfect, we're pretty clear that, okay, we're not perfect, we're just trying to improve over time and show like changing progress with real KPI indicator. And I think this powerful story of quiet transformation was much more genuine.
Yeah.
And in a market, US market, where you have so many brand claims that they are perfect match, I think it was true. What was interesting as well is we were a mass market brands selling everywhere in the US. And to say the least, in 2019, the average American was not passionate about sustainability. We avoided a few directions that I think in retrospect were not the right ones. So for instance, many brands bet on green premium. What is green premium? Is a belief that customer are willing to pay more for sustainable product. It's kind of true, but very, very little, like 3% max. So that means if you sell two products and one is sustainable and the other is not, the customer will need to pay a bit more, but 3%. While many business models of the fashion were bet on, they would pay 10% more, 20%, 30% more.
And then you lose the sales.
And you lose the sales. And also you alienate a little bit customer because many products, and not only fashion, by the way, many products organic in the US are extremely expensive. And I think it was not the right call and the right direction. So we avoided green premium. We put data a bit everywhere. So we developed tools internally. We developed our own families of index that were internally focused, but that were helping us to change our process gradually to communicate to the customer. So there was many things we have done. We also launched an accelerator program, AMSA, Adore Me Sustainability Accelerator, in which we were supporting very early stage startup and technologies that will make a difference. So that's the type of initiative we launched. Yeah, I think overall I'm pretty proud of what we have done and what Adore Me team is still continuing to do, because actually I took a break, a sabbatical last year, and I left the company, but in good hands. But overall, I think it was a very interesting job.
So you mentioned the accelerator. Would you say that this accelerator, within the accelerator, you're offering support to the startup based on the data and the index that you mentioned, everything that you learned that you implemented on your end first for Adore Me, that you mentioned there was trial and error, that you evolved within this. Is that some of the support that the startup could expect in the accelerator?
True. What was happening? Adore Me as a business, we developed a lot of brick internally, but there was some certain area of expertise or knowledge. And we identified extremely promising startup, usually with bright entrepreneurs. We pushed them, I would say, to develop their solution and to bring it to the next level. And what we were offering was, usually we were their first customer or second customer, so very early for them, which is important. We were offering a true market fit assessment, and we were pretty brutal. I would say, okay, no, this doesn't work. Forget it. We want this, we want that. It was helping them to refine their product a little bit in advance. And they had access to all our data, which is something very important because all our data was clean and so on. I remember the founder of one of them, Carbon Fact, told us, your support was worth millions of investments for us because they had no problem to access to capital, but they had problem to access to brands that were complex enough or big enough to be credible. And I think it's also one of the challenges in the fashion industry, by the way, that the tech knowledge is relatively low. So there is less investment in the fashion sector than in other sectors. And unfortunately, there is a bit of a mismatch between world-class tech developed by the startup and what fashion brands typically can swallow. And I think we were accelerating, being the first founder, helping to mature the platform, and then it can scale. I mean, I mentioned Carbon Fact. We were the second client, actually not the first one, but now there are hundreds of clients across the fashion industry. I think they are successful. Another startup that is amazing in traceability field. We were again in the first 3 clients. And now they have hundreds of clients. And I think it's important for them to experience, to create a track record with a household name. And gradually, you grow one startup, two startups, and then you launch an accelerator and you have other companies that reach you and they want to join the program. And very interesting.
Share a bit your observation because you mentioned something about the fashion industry being a bit behind when it comes to tech. And this is something that I noticed. It could be the nature of the business, given the fact that we work 1 year ahead. And so everything has to be more on the conservative side. I did notice also on my hand that fashion can be a bit slower to jump on the new tech compared to other industry. Tell us a bit more about your observation on this. And if you see an evolution.
Yeah, I think it's a complex question, can be sensitive too. There is many factors to that. There were studies this week by Bain that looked at the investment of the fashion sector versus other sector, and it's much lower in tech. They look at the share of COMEX in which you had like a CIO or CTO that was there, and it's much lower in fashion than in other industries. So telco, distribution, retail. But where it's coming from, it can come from many reasons. Some good, some bad, by the way. It can be that historically it was not needed because the magic of fashion was more you draw, you design something and you create a garment. It was not added value by tech. So tech has always been like in the backbone. I mean, in telco, typically without tech, you don't go far. In fashion, the reality, you can go far without tech. So I think it was not the DNA to start with. Then I think there is a dynamic of power in different parts of the company and different sectors, and I think it's pretty low. And I think after it's a bit of a vicious circle because low investment, like a tough legacy, but then it's harder to jump on the wagon of the train. I mean, most in the world, most of orders are done towards supplier, are done with Excel and PDF. And it just is a bit old school. What can I say? But it's not that easy to, when you're almost at a very basic level, to go to the top level. So how do you gradually find, and another aspect of the industry, the complex network with many, many companies all over the place. And to have genuine collaboration, you need usually like a shared practice. So you can have a few brands that try to push that to their supplier. But guess what? Their suppliers are also working with other brands that are also pushing their own network. And you have like all those layers. And ultimately, people just say, oh, but let's use Excel in this case. So I think it's changing. We hope that
it is.
It has to change, but it's a journey.
It is. I think also, like you mentioned, it's an entire ecosystem that happens behind bringing a finished garment to the consumer. There is an entire world and an entire spider web of all these facets that have to work together. But I think with the rise of AI now being in people's everyday life, in all of these aspects, we're getting more comfortable with it. So I think it will be a learning curve for all of these different parts to calibrate together and just all align on this faster growth towards technology.
True. I think we're entering an acceleration period, and I can tell you, I feel it every day. I met people from the industry. And I think in the next 2 to 4 years, there will be some drastic change, and it will be pretty Darwinian. Some will adapt and be successful. Some will not. And honestly, they will become dinosaurs, and it's much faster than what I think. And I think because it's the rise of technology, there is also the fact that the economy and fashion industry is suffering a little bit economically. So you have to be much more efficient. And I think it's not great for everybody's P&L, but it also select a little bit the bad practice and the good practice. So this is trading. So I think it's an interesting element. You have also a very interesting brand that can arise. What also is happening, which I think is a positive aspect of technology, the cost to launch a brand and operate a brand is also getting lower. You know, if you launch Shopify, you have an ecosystem and you have some tools that are almost free or very cheap that give you world-class factor. Well, before to manage 12 equivalent, you will pay $200,000 just to
you
start
needed a team, you needed like to hire, you needed to learn. And right now, like the opportunity and the accessibility for someone that would want to launch a brand, there is so much support, and the cost of it are a fraction of what they were even 5 years ago or even 3 years ago. And every day now is becoming more accessible as AI is learning. Like it's just going to go faster and faster. And I think this is beautiful because it brings this opportunity to more creator. There is many people that are interested in that. They come from different backgrounds, like you mentioned. Like it can be, they saw an opportunity opportunity for something in the market that was lacking, and they feel like, I want to bring this vision. And right now with the technology, it's becoming more accessible.
Yeah, no, totally. Alors, it will not come without challenge, of course, but I think
Yes.
the landscape is moving. So, for sure.
It will be very interesting, like when we say to see the future, but now we're talking about not even years, if you think about like 2 months ago and right now, there's already a lot more tools. There's a lot of things that move. So it's a matter of month by month, this landscape is changing. Like it's really fast. If we think about the accelerator, talking about the future now, what are some growth or expansion that you're excited about, or maybe there's plans? Tell us a bit more about the future of the accelerator.
Alors, the accelerator is continuing its journey. I think they are looking for a new wave of entrepreneurs. So go on acceleratesustainability.com and you can apply. But I think in general, they see all those trends you mentioned, AI, but it's not only about AI. You also have a lot of interesting trends to the materials. So what type of product you are developing. So for instance, one of the company incubated was Evertye, and they have an amazing process for the dyeing. The dyeing process in fashion is extremely polluting. We are talking of 1/3 of the total emissions of carbon of the fashion industry. While transportation is 2%. So it's like 10 times more than the famous transportation we are crossing the world 10 times. And they have a process that allows to do dyeing without any energy. And this Evertye technology can be like a revolution. And it was part of the accelerator. Adorni was the first brand ever to launch this process of dyeing. Now they have a roster of a new customer, and it will allow them to build new factories. And in general, in the materials, you have many things that are coming to the market that are very early stage, because we are talking of R&D development with chemists, but the products start to be mature and it's promising. I think they will use the tech part with the software and so on. And there is the raw material part, which is also extremely interesting. So stay tuned.
Of course, we will. For the listeners who want to connect or apply, definitely all the links will be in the description. Romain, thank you so much for your insight and your perspective. We'll definitely stay tuned for the bright future ahead for the accelerator and for you, of course.